Talmud, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish asked the following question. Why does the pasuk say the date of Israel's death came close? It should have just said, Vayikravu Yisrael Lamus, and Yisrael came close to dying. The rabbi answered the following. A day comes and goes. It is a 24-hour period that is finite. Tzaddikim, however, through their good deeds and through the transmission of their teachings, live on forever. Mrs. Rohr, the Tzaddikess, who contributed to the establishment of this school, lives on through the continual learning of Torah that takes place in the Rohr Middle School every day. Our daily learning of Torah, as well as Jewish ethics and values, continues the legacy of Mrs. Rohr and her family wish to perpetuate. Midos exemplifying gentleness, kindness, strength of character, chesed, and tzedakah are all qualities Mrs. Rohr emulated. These qualities are possessed by our Rebbeim, our mentors, who guide us in the Torah way. Mrs. Rohr lives on in the minds and hearts of every student here, who is touched by her love of Torah and Judaism, which she gives us all the opportunity to learn, as well as share with others. We are so grateful to Mrs. Rohr and her family for giving us this incredible opportunity to learn Torah. May the memory of Mrs. Rohr always be blessed.
Now to call on Mr. Shmuel Goldis, our 8th grade, who will speak a few kind words about the Rohr family and his appreciation.
In this week's Parsha, Parshas Vayachi, it talks about Yaakov giving bracha to the Shvatim. When Yaakov gets to the tribe of Yisachar, he gives Yisachar a bracha that he should be able to learn Torah all his days. By the tribe of Zevulun, Yaakov gives him a bracha that he should be a successful businessman and be able to support Yisachar in his learning. Rohr family, on behalf of myself, my classmates, and fellow Yeshiva Bachrim, I would like to thank you for being our Zevulun. Because of your family, we are able to learn and study Torah all day. It says that someone who supports people who learn gets the reward for their learning, their children's learning, and their grandchildren's learning. I'm happy to say that because of your generous support, we are able to continue in our Torah education, learning good midos to help us throughout our lives. May your family be zocha to continue doing this great mitzvah of supporting Torah study. Thank
you. Very happy now to call on someone who was from our very first graduating class in the Rohr Middle School, and I can assure you at that graduation it was a great milestone. I'd like to ask him to come up today and share some of his fond memories and appreciation to the Rohr family, Mr. Yosef Fried.
The messenger came from Goshen and reported to Yosef, "Behold, your father is sick." It would seem that this was a fairly commonplace message, especially regarding elderly people. But in actuality, it was a remarkable statement, an unheard of statement. According to the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, there had never been an illness in the world before this time. Death never came as the culmination of a large illness. A person would be fit as a fiddle one moment and dead the next. He would just sneeze and his soul would depart through his nostrils. Yaakov, however, prayed to Hashem that people should become ill, so that they should have some inkling that death is imminent. "Please do not take my soul," he prayed, "before I have the opportunity to leave instructions for my children and my household." Hashem accepted Yaakov's prayer, and he became sick. As the messenger came to report to Yosef about the amazing thing that happened in Goshen, "Behold, your father is sick," it was sensational news. For those who believe that death is the end, blissful ignorance at the moment of death is perhaps preferable to a few moments of agony. but for those who believe in the immortality of the soul, in punishment and reward in the next world, and an eternal afterlife, a few precious moments of preparation are priceless indeed. Mrs. Rohr left this world with her house in order. This is her house. And we, the past and present students of the Rohr Middle School, are her children. Her everlasting involvement in our growth in Torah and Midos will be a source of merit for her and for her family forever. Thank you.
It was at sad times, the times that require reflection, which is where we're at now. Baruch Hashem, we have Rosh Yeshiva that can put the right perspective on things. I'm very, very honored that Rabbi Lyman is here today to address us. Hopefully we can soak in the words and carry this level of appreciation beyond just today. Let's give proper cover, everyone, to Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Lyman.
Today to reminisce and give covet to Mrs. Rohr, Sarah Basi Kusila Yehuda Rohr. As was mentioned previously, the purpose of getting together is to be Makir Tov, to show an appreciation of what she has done for us. As one of the Talmidim mentioned before, that this is her legacy, this which we are here, and our learning is a measure of her generosity. But I think there's an added note, and that is that it's a tremendous chus for someone who passed away to leave over a legacy which inspires people, talmidim, individuals, friends, and family afterwards to do mitzvos, to do chesed, to tzedakah, and any inspiration which we, as a school, as a yeshiva, can glean from her life is in itself her legacy and a tremendous chus for her. So I think it's appropriate to participate and reflect so that we can be inspired and learn from her life, from her midos, from her tzedakah, and afford her a tremendous chus. I want to first thank Rabbi Palgon for his words before. As he was speaking, honestly, I had forgotten some of the details of that momentous occasion many years ago. I think it was 5 years ago when Mr. Rohr came, but Palgan had it down very accurately. And it was a very special time in the history of Torah Semes, Torah Chaim in general, and more specifically the Rohr Middle School. I also want to thank those Talmidim who spoke very beautifully beforehand. I think it's a measure of testimony of what the Rohr Middle School does in terms of promoting and producing such tremendous and wonderful Talmidim who can speak very beautifully for a special cause. And that itself should be a tremendous chus for Sarah Basi Kusila Yehuda. I myself, I know the Rohrs, I know Mr. Rohr, I know Mrs. Rohr. And there's a lot of things that can be spoken about when we speak about Mrs. Rohr. We can speak about her tzedakah. We can speak about her family. She has a beautiful family that she brought up. Several daughters, a son, sons-in-laws, daughter-in-law. She has a lot to be proud of. I would like to focus on one specific thing from which I saw on a rate whenever I spoke to her on the phone or in person. There's something which stood out. And I'll share with you a little insight before we speak about her from Chazal, over the chashivas of what this midah means. There's a pasuk in Vayera when the malachim, the angels, first came to greet and to meet with Avram, and they come out from the road, they come to his house. The first thing that they say to him, Ayom Re'elav, and they say to him, Ayei Sarah Ishtecha. where is Sarah, your wife? Where is she? And to which he responds, Vayomer Hineva Owel. Behold, she's in the tent. She's in the house. And Rashi brings the famous Gemara about Messiah. What was the purpose of their asking Avram where she is? Yodem Hayu Malchei Hasharis. The angels knew Sarah Yimenu Heichon Haisa. They knew exactly where she was. Ella. So what was the purpose of their question? Zodia Shetznua Haisa. To let it be known, to make known that she was a tznuah, a modest, a humble person. Why? What was the reason? To make her more beloved and dear to her husband. So if you think about it, it's a mind-boggling concept. We know Avram and Sarah were the forefathers, the forefather, matriarch, patriarch of Chai Yisrael. They didn't have tremendous shalom bayis problems. They lived in harmony, they lived in peace with each other, they had special, very strong feelings for each other. There was no need, the way we know it, to enhance their shalom bayis. But Malachim felt there's always a benefit to enhancing, to increasing someone's shalom bayis. And they wanted to make Sarah more beloved to Avram. Now if you would ask me, and if the Malachim would have asked me, Rabbi Naaman, give me some advice. How would you recommend what can I say about Sarah, which would endear her more to her husband, on top of all the tremendous love and feelings he had for her? What can you mention? So I probably would have said, well, big tzaddikus, hachnosas orchim, Eved Hashem, right? Someone who believes in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. She's a big marvelous Torah. She was Mekareves Hanoshim. She used to bring all the women, Tachas Kampe Hashrina. She made a lot of people from. Tremendous wife, right? Tremendous woman, tremendous lady. That's what I would advise the Malachim to talk about and to emphasize to Avram, say he should care for her more, appreciate his wife more. That's not what Malachim picked. That's not what they said. What they say, Ayei, Sarah, where's your wife? That he can respond, she's in the house. And as Rashi says, that means she's a tznuah, a modest woman. That means that is the greatest, most phenomenal concept and midah which a woman can possess, which will therefore bring greater endearment to the husband on her behalf. When a husband knows, when a man knows that his wife is a tznuah, a modest woman, and she's in the house, she's not outgoing if not necessary, she's staying in the house if possible, that's the greatest midah a woman can have. And that's what the Malachim picked to endear her to her husband. And why is that, Rabbi say? Why is that? There's a Gemara in Yavamas. The Gemara discusses the famous halacha. Halacha is as follows, Rabbi say. We all know an Ammoni and a Moavi, if you come from the community or from the country, the nation of Ammon and Moab, you're forbidden to intermarry with Klal Yisrael. There's no way you can convert. There's no way you can do it. You can't be participant in the family of Klal Yisrael. But there's an exception to that rule. What is the exception? And the Gemara says, Ammoni v'lo Ammonis, Moavi v'lo Moavis. What does that mean? That an Ammonis, right, a female Ammoni, right, the women from Ammon, and the women from Moab are allowed to intermarry. They could, if converting, they can marry into Klal Yisrael. The Gemara wants to know, why is this true? What's the difference? Why were the men ostracized, not allowed to participate, but the women were allowed to intermarry into Klal Yisrael? Why? What happened? What's the reason? The Gemara is like this. Because the men were punished and they were not considered fine, refined people because because when Klal Yisrael was in the Midbar, in the Sinai desert, after they left Mitzrayim, they had no food, they had no water for a certain time, and when they met Ammon and Moab, they were not outgoing, they did not go out to greet them with water, with food, with lechem and mayim. There was no hachnos orchim there. That's why the male Ammonis were not allowed forever to intermarry with Klal Yisrael, because that indicates to us, and to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's something wrong. There's something seriously wrong with their teva, with their nature, with their midah. Something is lacking over there. If they don't have the decency to go ahead and go out and greet these people in the desert, the whole nation of 2 million people with water and mayim and lechem, something's wrong. And they could never be part of the kedusha of Klal Yisrael. But the women, there was no complaint against the women. Why? It says the Gemara, because darko shel ish is the way of a man will kadem to go out and greet people. V'lo darko shel isha. They weren't supposed to go out to greet the people because it wasn't the proper protocol. It was lacking in sneers. But the Gemara is not finished. Listen to this. It says the Gemara. What do you mean? But the women should have gone out to greet the women. And the men should have gone out to greet the men. So they still should be punished. The women didn't do anything. They stayed in their house. Says the Gemara, a phenomenal, fundamental concept. The Gemara says, no. They should not, they did the right thing by not greeting even the women. Why? Because they were normally in the house. Because, the famous line, Kol Kavuda Bas Melech Penima. The kavod, the honor, the splendor, the greatness of every Bas Melech, of the daughter of a king, and all Jewish women are daughters of kings, is Penima. Should be inside. Right? Shouldn't be out flaunting for greatness. I'm not even talking about general modesty and clothing and dress. I'm referring to everything. The way and the place that a woman should be, and her comportment should be of such that she's modest, she's behind the scenes. Not to flaunt her greatness, not to flaunt or show off her brilliance. It should be done properly. And therefore, the women of Ammon and Moab were not expected to go out. That's what the Gemara says. What does that mean on both sides? Ammon and Moab were the most disgusting and decrepit of people. As we see, the husbands couldn't intermarry at all. Terrible people. They had no sense of anything. But nevertheless, the Gemara seems to feel that their wives, who couldn't have been that much better than the husbands, but because they had the feeling embedded within their nefesh, every woman has that feeling of kol kavuda bas melech penima. And they felt it, as low as they were, those men, those women, but the women honestly and really did feel that I shouldn't go out. So what does that mean, Rabos? That means to us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu implanted in every woman that feeling, that hargasha, that sensitivity of, I should be a tzenua. I should not be out if not necessary. If the time calls for it, if I have to go out for whatever reason, right? There are many women, very special women, who go out after work. They do different things. They teach. That's all appropriate because it's necessary. But when not necessary, the most beautiful situation would be she is behind the scenes. And that's what Sarah was. That's what Sarah Imenu was. And that's what the Sarah Bas Yehuda that we're speaking about today. She was someone, whenever I spoke to her, she had a lot of talent. She had a lot of wealth. She could have gone out there and been the most famous woman in Ball Harbor, in Florida, probably, right? But she was always behind the scenes because she had that innate, ingrained feeling that God is my place. I'm going to do a lot. She accomplished a lot. I've heard certain stories about her, just very small things, but I think it speaks volumes. They used to live in Bogota, Colombia, the Rohr family. And when they had a special Simchas Torah get-together, which they sponsored in their house, a Sudas Yontif. They had hundreds of people at that Simchas Yontif, the Simchas Torah. On Pesach was the same thing. At Pesach Seder, 50, 60, 70 people was normal to have at their Pesach Seder. So there's a lot she was famous for, a lot that people knew about her. It was done with sneus. with modesty, with humility, behind the scenes. Right? I almost never saw her. So a couple times. She came out when it was necessary. When Torah Zemes, Torah Chaim honored the Rohrs, it was 3 years ago, she accepted the honor with her husband. Why? Not because she wanted the fanfare, not because she wanted the limelight, not because she wanted everyone to see what a special lady she was, but because she felt it was the right thing to do for Klal Yisrael. It was the right thing to do for Torah in Miami. And that's what, if we can walk away from today's assembly, and be a little bit inspired by her tznius. Like I said, tznius is not just applicable to a woman, it applies to everybody in various ways. A person also, a man, right? Obviously his job is to go out there and be with the people and do the job, do a business, make a parnasa, be Marbush Torah, be Rebbe, whatever it might be. But it has to be done with tznius, with humility, not to want the covenant, not to want the fanfare, not to want your name up in lights. That's not the derech of Torah. It's not the derech of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we should all be zocheh to be inspired for many, many years to come. When we think about this Mrs. Rohr, Sarah Basi Kusil Yehuda, the life that she lived was a very inspiring one, especially in the area of tznius and modesty. We should grow from it, and that'll be a tremendous chus for her neshama. Thank you.
I know when I see the name outside the building, I waited a few weeks before I could see it again. And I see Rohr Middle School, I'm going to reflect on those words. Thank you very much. Although that concludes the formal program today, I hope that you'll remain somewhat inspired as we immediately go back to try and learn some of that Torah that they supported so generously.